you're watching this video and this is your sweatshirt, please feel free to contact me and I will mail it
you
to you.
have no idea who sweatshirt?
I don't know. I just have it. You have any clothes like that?
I understand. Yeah.
Where does this come from? I don't know. What's up, guys? Amanda Smith here with Cassidy Hubbarth. You already know I'm obsessed with you from when we met here in SLC, so thank you so much for taking time to be on my show today.
Are you kidding me, Amanda? It's my pleasure. I'm so happy to be a part of your show.
So I have to tell you guys that Cassidy was like, "Did you go to Northwestern?
Did.
You tell me that?"
I was like, did I not remember this about our conversation? I feel really bad.
No, and I'm just crazy. Pulled this one out of the closet. This definitely isn't even my sweatshirt.
Respect. I appreciate it. You know what? That means a lot. That you did your homework so much that you're representing for my university.
Let's go Cats.
Go Cats, exactly.
So, to have started your career as a traffic reporter.
Oh yeah.
Look at where you are now, covering basketball at the highest level. What has been the most gratifying part of that sort of progression and process for you?
Oh man. I get, it's not to sound corny, but it's really just been about the journey, really kind of in how I feel like I've earned kind of every step because I've climbed, my way up to where I am now, which is my dream job. And, I think it was a special time in media as it was changing a lot and really going more digital and into a lot of social media. And the fact that I was, I think it was beneficial to me that I was getting out of Northwestern at the time where social media was actually just starting. So I was able to learn more about it and take advantage of it. And, being able to kind of ride that wave while also having a passion for it, I think, it gives me a certain level of a pride that, I not only saw an opportunity, but I saw it as something that, that I really wanted to be a part of.
When you talk about the sort of climb and on the way up, there's going to be moments, I feel like, in any career when you take a couple steps back or you feel like you're not progressing at the pace that maybe you expect. What advice would you give to someone who has faced that sort of rejection and being told no about not letting that self-doubt overwhelm you?
Well, I mean, I think the biggest part about, doors closing is it allows new doors to open. And it's not just about being told no, it's also about you yourself having to say no and understanding what are, the right opportunities for you. I was fortunate to have, some job offers, but they didn't really play perfectly with my personal life. And it was really hard for me to, turn some jobs down, but it then opened up new doors for me to really try to find a good balance. As far as, advice I give to people when they hear the word no, and to find some patience, I guess that's it. Like, understand that, this is not just about getting, the Monday Night Football seat and just being at the top level. If this is a career, and so enjoy the climb, enjoy the no's, enjoy the highs, because that only will make you better. I remember, when I just started at ESPN. I was working in digital. I was hired as a digital talent. I was not a full-time employee, and I think being told I wasn't ready yet was frustrating because obviously, we're all competitive people and, we have a lot of drive in this business. But that patience and that scar tissue you build up only makes you stronger And you have to learn. I mean, as much as when people tell you all you need is reps, and you go, I don't want to hear that again. Like, I can't hear all I need is reps. But that's, you know, you got to understand, if you're hearing it from people you trust and look up to, and, you know, you feel like have your best interest at heart, like, make sure you're listening, because it is not a criticism on your talent and your ability. It is just, it's like everybody else. You have to practice. You have to, you know, get experience to get better. Even the best athletes in the world, that, you know, that plays out for them as well. So I guess one of my biggest, my two-part advice would be, really try to listen when people say all you need is reps. Because if they're saying all you need is reps, and they're saying you have it, you
Yeah.
just need to work on it. And then secondly, like, you know, take control of your own life. If you work hard and are passionate about it, and you are presented with opportunities, like, figure out what's best for you and in your life as a whole, because it's a grind of a industry, and so you need to find balance in order to make sure that, you know, you have the will to keep going forward, because it's not for the faint of heart.
What do you feel like you've learned about balance throughout your journey?
You know, I'm still learning. I have a brand new you know, challenge on my hand, being a new mother, and you know,
That's
like,
you.
thank you. And so that's you know, having to learn how to balance that with work and travel. I will say this year has been hard for me. You know, I missed pretty much the first half plus of the season. And, you know, the way that I operate is I like to fully indulge in everything that's going on in the NBA, both, you know, on the court and on social media. And obviously, you know, my priorities were shifted. And, you know, when I did return, I felt a little behind, and I didn't feel like I had as much, um, you know, like a grasp of everything that was going on in the league. And that's tough, because I think what has helped me be successful is my preparation. And then that also helps me make sure that I, you know, am performing well, because this business, when you're on air, or even, you know, when you're not and you're writing, it's a mind game, because it's your preparation and your confidence. And if you don't feel like you're prepared, then it kind of it seeps into your confidence. And if you're not confident, then it affects your ability to be present. And to me, being present is the number one quality of a good journalist, reporter, host, because they need to hear and observe everything that's going on around them. So it's been tough, but, you know, I'm still learning. I'm excited for next season. Now that, like, you know, I am getting a handle of what's happening here at home, and
Yeah.
taking care of my daughter, and also just starting the season from the beginning, so I can really, you know, dive back in and find out, you know, what my new normal is going to be, because it's just my life and how I approach to work is just not going to be the same, because I'm not the same.
Yeah.
So to answer your question, like, what have I learned about balance, is that it always is changing. You're always going to have to find new ways to, you know, rebalance yourself, because um, hopefully you're always growing, and you're always growing in this business. So the moment you feel comfortable, get ready for something to shake everything up.
Shoot, your life goals. Come on.
I mean, look,
You're like, I'm
my
trying.
goal in life is just to survive right now.
Yeah. I was reading an interview you had done, and you said that early on in your career, you felt like you maybe weren't being yourself and were just kind of trying to fit a mold of what you thought you should be.
Right.
How were you able to find your voice?
Well, I mean, that goes back to what I was saying about being prepared and being
Yeah.
present, and you know, and look, I could study my butt off and make sure that, like, I was up to date on all the storylines. But again, it comes to until you are really have that experience and are familiar with certain um, circumstances that happen or are thrown at you, you're just gonna not feel like you have a hold of things. So, this was, I guess, this was mostly when I was hosting Sports Center. It was nerve wracking for me because, I just felt like I was not really being myself on air because I was just trying to survive, just trying to not mess up, just trying to, um, not fumble over a hockey name or something. Unfortunately, excuse me, I have a little bit of a cold. Fortunately, I, was given the opportunity to host NBA Tonight, and I really feel like that's where I found my voice because I was able to focus on, my favorite sport and kind of make it my own. That show that is, and I think in doing that and having more control over the content and really a high level of passion and interest helped me, excuse me, really kind of build a confidence that allowed me to um, build on that and be better. Sorry.
I'm gonna send you some Dayquil.
Oh, summer colds are the worst.
Summer allergies, summer colds. It ain't fun.
No.
But you're a trooper for coming on to the Amanda Special.
Oh my God, no, that's my fault. All this talking.
Going from hosting to now on the sidelines, what has been the most challenging part of that transition for you?
Well, I'm still kind of learning that transition. It's the studio is a controlled environment. Even when there's breaking news, you kind of know what's happening. You can go to your researcher. You can talk to your producer. In an arena, anything can happen. Like, case in point, I'm doing summer league and an earthquake happened.
Yeah.
And you could probably tell, like, I was not ready for that. And who would be?
You were literally shook, as they would say.
I was. And just, you don't know what to expect with that. And the league didn't. And so that was a situation where, I look back and I'm like, I wish I could have been a little more poised in that situation, but it's like, that's a growing mark for me because there's going to be something else that's unprecedented that happens in games, and I'm going to have to put my head down and make sure that I'm figuring out the answers and not distracted by everything that's happening around me. So and as far as like what goes on on sidelines is it's your opportunity. It's the hardest, easiest job in the broadcast because, there are times where you're just not needed. And so you can walk away from a broadcast and be like, wow, I got paid to do that. And then there's other times where, you're essential to really telling the story of that game. And so you just have to be prepared. There's no script, obviously, for doing sidelines. And these interviews, especially with the coaches, they don't like doing them. It's You never really can ask a cutting edge question because it's in the middle of the game. And then post game is really where you can have an opportunity to cut through, but you have no way to really prepare for that interview other than obviously following the game. But you just have to take approach where you're present. And I guess that is the biggest thing for me, is making sure my ears are all the way open at every single moment. Whereas like when I'm hosting, I can kind of prepare for, all right, this is what's going to happen in the next block, blah, 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 blah. Even if, one of my analysts says something I have to be present for, but there's just something different, where you need to make sure that every single one of your senses is open when you're on the sidelines, or you're going to miss something.
You for sure aren't going to miss an earthquake, so no worries there.
I mean, now I won't. It was so funny because I was sitting, they had us behind the basket, and we were like in these like stands almost with desks. And I'm sitting there and I'm like, I'm on the back end of the desk. And I look over to him, I'm like, can someone stop like swaying the stands here? And then actually my husband was with me at the time. He goes, no, this is an earthquake. And I'm like, oh my God. And it happened for 45 seconds. I'm like, this is crazy. And so the earthquake really wasn't what was the scariest part of it all. It was really just like as hysteria started to build, and people were like texting and being like, it was a 7.1. And so that's what really was me. And we were on air for an hour, just being like, well, what do we do now? So that is something you don't prepare for, but I now know. And those are the moments if you're a reporter that you wish for, because A, no one was hurt, but B, like I learned a ton. I learned a ton about myself, and I learned a ton about, how to go about that situation better.
Hashtag NBA Summer League Earthquake 2K19. Put on a shirt. So I just want to play a quick little game.
Okay, let's do it.
Very easy. So I'll just give you like a topic, and then you just give me one word that comes to mind.
Okay.
I know. Yeah. One word.
For my cold. Okay, let's do it.
Yeah, I'm very thoughtful like that. NBA offseason.
Crazy.
The Los Angeles teams.
Rivalry ?
NBA Twitter.
I didn't want to say the first one that came to mind. Community.
Zion Williamson.
Beast.
Dame Lillard saying his Game 5 shot over the Thunder was for Seattle.
Respect.
It's cold. All right, my fellow Illinois lady. The Chicago Bulls. It hurts.
Lowry. That's what I'll say. Lowry.
Thank you so much for playing this week's edition of One Word.
Yes.
Fantastic.
I had a lot of other words going through my head, and I'm like, what won't get me fired here?
No, we want to keep everyone employed.
Yes.
On the Amanda Schmidt Show. Okay, we had some great questions for you, so I want to get to as many as we can.
Oh.
So we kind of talked about this a little bit earlier, but more in depth, Tim Rushi says, what do you do for prepping interviews, and how does that change when a player you didn't expect ends up doing the walk-off?
So everyone has their different approach. I am fortunate enough to work with Doris Burke a lot on broadcasts, and so I kind of talk to her about how she prepares. I'm always preparing throughout the game. Obviously, I know we, being a national broadcast, we try to aim for the star athlete regardless. But if someone hits a game winner, like for instance, I had a walk-off where Mike Conley, I think, went off with 45 points, but it was Marc Gasol who got the game winner. And so, obviously I had to go get Marc Gasol, but then Mark pulled in Mike. So then I had to just adjust on the fly. I think that also happened in Salt Lake when I met you with James Harden and Chris Paul. I was only supposed to do the interview with James Harden, but Chris Paul kind of got pulled into the interview. You just gotta roll with the punches. I mean, if you know what happened in the game, just ask about what happened in the game. So there's really no other preparation but just making sure that you're paying attention. And other than that, I tend to ask broader questions about what's happening with the team after I go micro and then macro. I tend to try to first, if I'm allowed that amount of time, because sometimes they only allow you a short amount of time if they have to get to the game after, or sometimes I don't even get an interview. But if I'm allowed to kind of do a full interview, I'll, ask a couple questions about the play and then how it impacts their team going forward, depending on what time of year it is. If it's a playoffs, it's a whole new ball game. But I usually, as far as going back to what me and Dorothy talk about, I usually kind of pull out my notepad with like 5 minutes to go in the fourth, and I write out all the possible people I could interview, and I just jot some ideas down. I usually jot like the more macro questions on the bottom half of my notebook, and then I fill in kind of notes and stats if there was like a record broken on the top. So, and then I kind of just go back and forth, and if it's like goes down to the final play, then I'll be prepared for both. And then if it's someone who hits a game winner, then that's basically, you don't really need to prepare for that. You just know to ask the following questions. A lot of people kind of lean on, what was going through your mind in that final minute. I try to kind of figure out a better way to ask that same type of question. And yeah, like that's kind of my process.
Yeah.
I'm still kind of finessing it, but that's pretty much it.
Dripping in finesse, as
Yes.
Bruno Mars said, with featuring Cardi B.
Yeah.
When you have your list of questions, but for young broadcasters maybe watching, how would you describe the importance of not just sticking to that and really listening to what the interviewee is saying?
Oh, I mean, this is what I preach often, because it's something that I need to continue to practice more, is that, you need to make sure you ask the question, you're listening to what they're saying, because sometimes they can lead you a whole nother direction that you weren't expecting. I mean, since we just talked about the James Harden Chris Paul thing, I mentioned to James Harden that he started, 0 for 15, and his reaction was like, "Oh, really? Like he didn't know?" I didn't mean for it to be a whole interview about him starting 0 for 15, but we're talking about one of the most prolific offensive threats in the history of the game, and his reaction, got me being like, "How could you not know? What?" You guys don't talk about that, and there was no conversation with your teammates. So and that ended up being a moment that is a situation that, like, some people may say, well, why you focus on that, but it was a raw reaction that I think fans want to see, and other than just like, hey, how, coach speak or player speak, something that's scripted. Like, the more you can get authentic reactions, the better. The way you do that is to make sure that you're in the moment.
I mean, I'll tell you, like, one of the reasons I look up to you so much is because I feel like you're just so real all the time. So
thank you.
You're welcome.
I'm trying, and that's, I guess that's my best advice, because I mean, I get in life, isn't that what we're all striving to be?
Yeah.
The best versions of ourselves, and to be, true and authentic. It's not easy. Look, I've told you, and as you brought up before, like, I was not myself. I was like this anchor person. My husband would call me out because, he'd be like, "Who is that person talking?" I'm like, "I don't know. I was just trying to get through the sports cast. You just let me be." And it's just it's something you got to it's about, like, finding confidence in yourself, and that's also like learning how to be an adult. Like, when you're young, you're still trying to figure it out. And I'm still trying to figure it out, but at least I know a little bit more than I did when I first started when I was 26 at ESPN.
Roseanne Sapia would like to know, Cassidy, how is hosting a show on a digital platform like Twitter different than hosting in studio?
Oh, well, Hoop Streams really is different because we're on site. And
Right.
So what we're trying to do with Hoop Streams is really bring the atmosphere two people on their devices of whatever game that we're at. So there's no commercials, so it's just nonstop. It's a lot more raw, a lot more just gritty in that sense, because we're not as buttoned up, and that's kind of what happens when you're on site. So I think the biggest difference between the two is it's just a controlled environment,
Yeah.
and the energy, and the fourth or fifth host is the arena, are the players in the background, which you just don't get in studio unless you're a studio show like Game Day.
All right, we got one final question for you from Swash Thrift. And I love this one whenever it's asked for anybody. What led you to this sort of career path?
I'd known that I wanted to be in this business since I was a little girl. So, I was fortunate to kind of made that decision early, which helped me develop a drive to kind of keep going through high school, finding opportunities, and then in college, and then after college. So, that's something you got to build on, because really a big part of starting out in this industry is trying to figure out like how to keep going, and especially since opportunities have changed so much since even, when I was in college, it used to be, hey, you need to start in market 147 on the local sports news broadcast and just work your way up. And now, local news is just they don't value sports broadcasts as much because there's so many opportunities elsewhere for fans to get their sports news. And so with that, I always say that sports media has expanded horizontally, meaning, there's just so many opportunities on the digital side that, you can take advantage of. So, yeah. And now I forgot the question.
What led you to the career path?
Oh, yeah. So I guess that's my point, was that, having a curiosity about the business, I think had first led me to where I am right now, because I had an interest in being in sports broadcasting, but the more I learned about it, the more I loved it. And I think that has helped me get to where I am.
I have to say, thank you so much.
Yeah,
for taking
I'm
time
sorry
to
I almost died on your show, but
that would have been the end of my career.
Oh my God. I'm runny nose. I'm a mess, but
no, you're not.
Always TV ready. There we go.
Always TV ready. My hoop hanging sister.
Yes.
Thank you so much. You're amazing. And
wonderful.
Thank you for always being willing to share advice and take the time to give back. So shout out to you.
Oh, of course, Amanda. This was really sweet. I loved it. And good luck to you.
Thank you. And hopefully I'll see you again.
Oh,
this time I won't be sweating and pass out.
Seen all of Amanda. And hopefully whoever is watching, they don't want that sweatshirt back.
Fingers crossed. Okay. All right, guys. For Cassidy Hubbarth, I'm Amanda Smith. We'll see you next time.